Hello, this educational video is brought to you by the Colorado HOA Information and Resource Center. The topic of this video presentation is Managing the HOA Community through its Covenants, Bylaws, and Rules and Regulations. The information provided during this presentation is for educational purposes only and is not meant to provide or to be construed as legal advice. Any legal questions should be directed to your attorney. It is important to know and understand the covenants, bylaws, and rules and regulations that govern your HOA. Covenant and rule enforcement are some of the biggest sources of contention in HOAs. By knowing the covenants, bylaws, rules, and procedures of your association, you can help avoid problems that may be very costly or jeopardize your relationships with other members of your HOA. One of the key features of an HOA is that they are a covenant-controlled community. Covenants and rules provide a mechanism to ensure architectural conformity, aesthetic integrity, and uniform enforcement. Upon moving to an HOA, a homeowner agrees to be subject to the covenants and rules of the HOA. The buyer cannot negotiate the covenants with the seller, and they are deemed to run with the land and automatically pass with the chain of title in a covenant-controlled community. What is the difference between a covenant and a rule? There are differences on what they cover and how they are adopted. Homeowners need to understand that they may be subject to the HOA's enforcement should they be non-compliant with the covenants or rules and regulations of the HOA. Restrictive covenants are deed provisions which restrict the manner in which you can use your property and the appearance of your property. Covenants are broken up into architectural restrictions and use restrictions. Restrictive covenants are contained in the declaration, also referred to as the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, and are drafted and recorded with the county clerk and recorder where the property is located at the time the HOA is created. Architectural restrictions generally require conformity in the appearance of the property, the material used to build, and may require approval for improvement additions. Examples include the type of building structure being built on a lot, adding an addition, or painting the house a certain color. Use restrictions address the manner in which your property and the common areas can be used, addressing such things as allowed activities on the property, home businesses and commercial use, and leasing activities. Rules and regulations. The board and its committees create the rules and regulations of the HOA. Rules govern how owners are to conduct themselves on the common areas and on the use of their property, commonly addressing parking, use of HOA property and facilities, noise issues, and pet issues such as leash and waste rules. What happens if an owner violates a covenant or a rule? What can an HOA and its board of directors do in order to enforce its covenants and rules? An HOA, through its board of directors, has many options available to it to enforce its covenants and rules if they are violated by a homeowner in the community. Let's discuss some of those options. One option is that an HOA can enforce covenants in a court of law against the violator and can seek to enjoin violators through a temporary restraining order and injunction. In addition, the HOA may seek to have the property returned to the condition it was prior to the alleged violation through the court action. This can, however, result in costly litigation and construction costs. An HOA can also record a notice of covenant violation, which operates similar to a lien and gives potential purchasers notice that there is a covenant violation on the property, which could hinder the sale of the property. This document is recorded at the county recorder's office in the county where the property is located. HOAs may levy fines to induce compliance, and if the violator fails to pay, the association may place a lien on the property, sue the homeowner, or even foreclose on the property. If it's determined that an owner is in violation of the covenants, the HOA may be entitled to attorney's fees and costs in enforcing the restriction. The HOA's governing documents may also provide that if an owner is in violation of a covenant or rule, their voting rights and rights to use the amenities may be suspended. The Kiowa law requires HOAs to adopt policies, procedures, and rules and regulations concerning enforcement of covenants and rules, including notice and hearing procedures. Before a levy can be set on any property, the homeowner has the opportunity to present their case. Fines may not be levied for a violation of rule, unless an HOA has a policy for a fair and impartial fact-finding process and provides the owner notice and opportunity to be heard before an impartial decision maker. The Board of Directors has a duty to enforce the covenants. Some governing documents allow the board to exercise discretion in the enforcement of the covenants, while others require consistent mandatory enforcement. If the HOA is not enforcing the covenants, it may be breaching its corporate duties. An owner may contact the HOA to let them know that a violation has occurred, and the HOA can seek to compel enforcement of the covenant. How are covenants and rules and regulations changed? There are different methods for each, and it is important for the HOA board members to review their governing documents, the Colorado Common Interest Ownership Act and the Colorado Revised Nonprofit Corporation Act. How does the HOA and the owners change or amend the covenants? Adopting or changing covenants requires the amendment of the HOA's declaration. These may be amended under the Kiowa law only with the affirmative vote of over 50% and up to 67% of the votes of the HOA. The HOA's governing documents will set the percentage. How are the HOA's rules and regulations adopted or changed? The HOA's bylaws address the process of creating and changing the rules. Usually, the board, or through its committees, create and/or change rules, which are then adopted by the Board of Directors on behalf of the HOA. Here are some things to keep in mind about covenants and rules. There are a lot of factors to consider when adopting or changing covenants and rules. Let's review some of these important factors. Review and understand the association's governing documents, the covenants, bylaws, and rules and regulations. Be knowledgeable about the architectural restrictions for the community. Be up to date on federal, state, county, and local laws that affect the community. Enforce covenants and rules fairly and consistently. It is also important for boards to know their boundaries. Rules cannot violate state and federal laws, including fair housing rules and laws pertaining to discrimination. Also, the Kiowa law addresses certain provisions that rules or covenants cannot conflict with. Finally, get input from the owners in the community and seek out legal advice to make sure that your adoptions and changes are legal and appropriate. This has been an educational presentation from the HOA Information and Resource Center. Following this presentation, you will find a short quiz and some HOA resources. Thank you for watching.